there comes a moment in life when you realize that nothing around you is truly holding you back. Not your past, not your circumstances, not even other people. It is your mindset. Your mindset shapes your reality in ways that are often invisible, yet deeply powerful. Every experience you go through is filtered through the way you think, the beliefs you hold, and the meaning you assign to situations. Two people can face the exact same circumstance, yet walk away with completely different emotions, lessons, and outcomes. The difference is not in the event itself, but in the mindset each person brings to it. When your mind is conditioned to focus on limitations, you begin to notice obstacles everywhere. A small setback feels like a major failure. A delay feels like rejection. A challenge feels like proof that you are not capable. Over time, this way of thinking builds a reality where you feel stuck, discouraged, and powerless. Not because life has decided to work against you, but because your perspective continuously reinforces that belief. On the other hand, when your mindset is aligned with growth and awareness, the same situations begin to look different. Obstacles become lessons. Failures become feedback. Delays become preparation. You start to see opportunities where others only see problems. This does not mean that difficulties disappear, but your relationship with them changes. Instead of feeling defeated, you become curious. Instead of resisting what is happening, you begin to understand it. Your thoughts also influence your actions. What you believe about yourself determines how you show up in the world. If you think you are not good enough, you hesitate, you hold back, and you avoid taking risks. But if you believe that you can learn, improve, and adapt, you act with more confidence and openness. These actions then create results, and those results reinforce your original mindset, creating a cycle that either limits you or expands you. Even your emotional state is shaped by your mindset. The same situation can create stress or calmness depending on how you interpret it. When you assume the worst, your body reacts with tension and fear. When you choose a more balanced perspective, you create space for patience and clarity. This internal shift changes how you communicate, how you make decisions, and how you handle pressure. Over time, your mindset becomes the foundation of your habits. The way you think influences what you repeatedly do, and what you repeatedly do becomes your life. Small daily choices, guided by your thoughts, accumulate into long-term results. This is why changing your mindset is not about a single moment of motivation, but about consistently choosing a different way of seeing and responding. As you begin to observe your thoughts more closely, you may realize how automatic many of them are. They are shaped by past experiences, conditioning, and repeated patterns. But just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean it is true or useful. The moment you recognize this, you create the possibility of change. You are no longer controlled by every thought that arises, but instead, you gain the ability to question, reshape, and redirect your thinking in a way that supports the life you want to create. Awareness creates control in a quiet yet transformative way. Most people move through their days on autopilot, reacting to thoughts as if the commands and emotions. A single negative thought can influence an entire mood, and that mood can shape behavior without any conscious choice. In this state, the mind leads and the individual follows without question. There is no space between what is felt and how one responds, which is why patterns repeat so easily and habits become difficult to break. The moment awareness enters, something subtle begins to shift. Instead of being completely absorbed in every thought, you start to notice it. You begin to recognize the difference between having a thought and being controlled by it. This simple observation creates a gap, a small distance between you and your inner experience. In that gap, there is a sense of stillness, and within that stillness lies the ability to choose. When you are aware, a negative thought does not immediately turn into a negative reaction. You see it arise, you acknowledge it, and instead of automatically believing it, you question it. You may notice how often your mind exaggerates, assumes, or repeats old narratives that no longer serve you. This recognition weakens the influence those thoughts have over your actions. They may still appear, but they no longer carry the same authority. Emotions follow a similar pattern. Without awareness, emotions can feel overwhelming, as if they define your entire state of being. Anger becomes something you act out, fear becomes something you avoid, and stress becomes something you carry throughout the day. With awareness, you begin to experience emotions without immediately identifying with them. You feel them fully, but you are not consumed by them. This allows you to respond with intention rather than react impulsively. Control, in this sense, does not mean suppressing or fighting your inner world. It is not about forcing yourself to think positively or ignoring what you feel. True control comes from understanding. The more you observe your patterns, the more clearly you see what triggers certain reactions and why they occur. This understanding gives you the ability to interrupt automatic responses and replace them with conscious choices that align with your values. As awareness deepens, it also extends to your behavior. You begin to notice the small decisions you make throughout the day, the habits that once felt automatic, and the ways you respond to challenges. This level of attention brings clarity, and clarity naturally leads to change. You become more intentional with your actions, more thoughtful in your responses, and more aligned with the direction you want your life to take. This process requires patience because awareness is not something that appears once and stays permanently. It is something you practice repeatedly, returning to it whenever you notice yourself drifting into unconscious patterns. Each moment of awareness strengthens your ability to remain present, and each moment of presence reinforces your control over how you think, feel, and act. Over time, this quiet practice transforms the way you experience yourself and the world around you. You are not your thoughts, even though it may feel that way most of the time. Thoughts appear in the mind constantly, shaping how you see yourself, how you interpret situations, and how you respond to the world. Because they arise so quickly and repeatedly, it is easy to assume that they define who you are. But there is a difference between the one who thinks and the one who is aware of those thoughts. When you believe every thought without question, you begin to live inside a story that may not be true. A single thought, like "I am not good enough," can quietly influence your decisions, your confidence, and your willingness to take action. Over time, repeated thoughts build a narrative, and that narrative starts to feel like reality. You begin to identify with it, as if it is a fixed part of your identity, rather than something that was learned and reinforced over time. The moment you step back and observe your thoughts, you begin to see their temporary nature. Thoughts come and go. Some are helpful, some are limiting, and many are simply repetitive patterns shaped by past experiences. If you were truly your thoughts, they would remain constant, but they do not. They change depending on your mood, your environment, and your focus. This alone shows that they are not a stable reflection of who you are, but rather passing mental events. There is a deeper part of you that notices these thoughts. It is quiet, steady, and unaffected by the constant movement of the mind. When you connect with this awareness, you begin to experience a sense of separation. You are no longer completely lost in every thought that arises. Instead, you become the observer, watching thoughts appear without immediately reacting to them. This shift may feel small, but it changes your entire relationship with your mind. As you strengthen this ability to observe, you gain the freedom to choose which thoughts deserve your attention. Not every thought needs to be believed, and not every thought requires action. Some thoughts are based on fear, insecurity, or old conditioning that no longer serves you. When you recognize this, you can allow those thoughts to pass without letting them influence your behavior. This creates a sense of inner stability, even when your mind is active. This understanding also reduces the pressure to control every thought. Many people try to eliminate negative thinking completely, which often leads to frustration. But when you realize that you are not your thoughts, the goal shifts. It is no longer about stopping thoughts from appearing, but about changing how you relate to them. You can experience a thought without becoming it, and you can let it go without resistance. Over time, this practice changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of immediately believing thoughts that create doubt or fear, you pause and look at them more clearly. You begin to ask whether they are true, whether they are helpful, and whether they align with the person you want to become. This creates space for more intentional choices, allowing you to act from clarity rather than from automatic patterns that once controlled your behavior. Growth comes from challenges, even though the mind often tries to avoid them. There is a natural tendency to seek comfort, stability, and ease because these states feel safe and familiar. When something difficult appears, the first reaction is often resistance. You may question why it is happening, wish for it to disappear, or feel as if it is something negative that should not be part of your life. But challenges are not interruptions to your path. They are a necessary part of it. Every challenge carries with it an opportunity to develop something within you that could not be built in comfort. Patience is not formed when everything goes your way. Strength is not developed when there is nothing to endure. Clarity does not arise when life is always predictable. These qualities emerge when you are placed in situations that require you to stretch beyond your current limits. Without these moments, growth remains only an idea rather than a lived experience. When you begin to look at challenges differently, your relationship with difficulty starts to shift. Instead of seeing problems as something that is happening against you, you start to see them as something that is shaping you. This does not remove the discomfort, but it gives it meaning. A setback becomes a lesson in resilience. A failure becomes guidance for improvement. A period of uncertainty becomes a space where you learn to trust yourself more deeply. The way you respond to challenges determines what you gain from them. If you resist and avoid, the same patterns tend to repeat, often in different forms. The lesson remains until it is understood. But when you face challenges with awareness and openness, you begin to extract value from them. You start to notice what they are revealing about your habits, your mindset, and your reactions. This awareness allows you to grow not just externally, but internally as well. Challenges also reveal your hidden strengths. In comfortable situations, much of your potential remains unused. It is only when you are tested that you discover what you are truly capable of handling. You may realize that you are more patient than you thought, more resilient than you believed, and more adaptable than you expected. These realizations build confidence, not from words, but from direct experience. Over time, facing challenges with a different mindset builds a quiet form of discipline. You become less dependent on ideal conditions and more focused on your ability to navigate whatever arises. This creates a sense of stability that does not rely on everything going perfectly. Instead of waiting for life to become easy, you become stronger in the face of difficulty. This shift allows you to move forward with greater clarity because you are no longer held back by the fear of discomfort. As you continue this process, challenges lose their power to intimidate you in the same way. They are still difficult, but they are no longer something you immediately want to escape. You begin to meet them with a different energy, one that is more grounded and more willing to learn. This gradual change in perspective transforms the role that challenges play in your life, turning them into a consistent source of growth and self-discovery. A small mental shift can change everything, even though it may not seem significant in the moment. People often believe that transformation requires something dramatic, a major breakthrough, or a life-changing event. But in reality, the direction of your life is shaped by the subtle ways you think each day. A single shift in perspective, repeated consistently, begins to influence how you interpret situations, how you make decisions, and how you move forward. It can start with something as simple as changing the way you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you begin to say, "I am learning how to do this." The situation itself has not changed, but your relationship with it has. This slight adjustment removes the finality of limitation and replaces it with possibility. Over time, this changes your willingness to try, to persist, and to grow beyond what once felt impossible. Small shifts also appear in the way you interpret challenges. Where you once saw failure, you begin to see feedback. Where you once felt rejected, you begin to see redirection. These changes are not about denying difficulty, but about choosing a perspective that supports progress rather than discouragement. Each time you make this choice, you reinforce a mindset that moves you forward instead of holding you back. The power of a small mental shift lies in its consistency. One positive thought alone may not change your life, but repeated thoughts shape beliefs, and beliefs guide actions. When your thinking begins to change, even slightly, your behavior starts to follow. You may take one small step that you would have avoided before. That step creates a result, and that result strengthens your confidence. This creates a chain reaction where each small shift leads to another, gradually building momentum. Your daily habits are deeply connected to these subtle changes in thinking. The decision to wake up earlier, to stay focused a little longer, or to respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively all begin in the mind. These choices may seem minor in isolation, but when practiced repeatedly, they create significant change over time. What once required effort becomes natural, and what once felt difficult becomes part of who you are. A small shift also changes how you experience time. Instead of feeling stuck or waiting for the right moment, you begin to take action in the present. You stop delaying growth and start engaging with what is in front of you. This builds a sense of progress. Even if the steps are small, progress creates motivation, and motivation encourages further action, continuing the cycle of change. As these shifts accumulate, they begin to influence not only your actions, but also your identity. You start to see yourself differently, not as someone limited by past patterns, but as someone capable of evolving. This change in self-perception affects how you approach opportunities, how you handle setbacks, and how you relate to yourself on a deeper level. Over time, what began as a small mental adjustment becomes a completely different way of living. The changes may not always be visible from the outside at first, but internally, everything feels different. Your thoughts become more supportive, your responses more intentional, and your direction more clear, all originating from simple shifts that were once almost unnoticeable but consistently practiced. In the end, everything returns to one simple truth. The way you think shapes the way you live. Your mindset is not fixed, and it is not something you are born with permanently. It is something you build moment by moment through awareness, choice, and practice. Every thought you question, every reaction you pause, and every perspective you shift becomes part of a new foundation. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. You only need to become more conscious of what is happening within you. From that awareness, change begins naturally. Your thoughts become clearer, your actions more intentional, and your path more aligned with who you truly want to be. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments of doubt. But now, you will meet them differently. Not as someone who is controlled by circumstances, but as someone who understands their inner world and can guide it with calm strength. And as this continues, you will begin to notice something powerful. The life you once wished for is no longer something distant. It starts to take shape through your daily choices, your quiet discipline, and your steady mindset. Because when your mindset shifts, everything else follows.